Welcome to Masterminds Under Divergent Professional Meetup. This is a special event we've put on with Asana. Our special guest today is Dani Donovan. We'll talk a little bit about her as well as we go through it. And I am Xand Griffin. Just a reminder for people that may not know, this is a program put on by the Asana Ambassador program. It is a volunteer community-led program. So Asana, if you don't know, is a project management tool. It differentiates itself by having user-friendly, easy to start workflows. And one of the things I really like about Asana is that it is very neurodivergent friendly. And there's these things called celebrations that really jazz my day up. When you celebrate and click off a task, it'll send one of these creatures shooting across your screen if you enable it. That's what this little Phoenix guy here is. The Asana Ambassador program, like I said before, is a global community. It's all volunteer based. It's free to join. You just have to complete a couple of courses and you get a lot of access to either hosting events or even bringing learning new information about Asana that you might not have access to outside of the program. And then I want to talk a little bit about what Masterminds is. It is a neurodivergent professional virtual event series. It is mostly held in the Asana community series, but I brought it to various other communities. We've brought it to specific business organizations that are queer led and brought it to the Registered Graphic Designers Guild in Canada, all different places, because in one of the things that I saw when I got diagnosed about a year and a half ago, or probably 2 years now, diagnosed as ADHD, I found that I didn't find a good professional organization for neurodivergent people. And I've been struggling for so long to fit in the work environment and figure out what worked. So this was really something I wanted to build to bring people together. Anyway, I like to start all of these meetings with neurodivergence is unique to each person. Your experience and values may be different from one another. So we're going to keep our minds open today as we learn from one another. Some people do not value being diagnosed, and that's okay. If you are early on in this journey, potentially interested in learning more about neurodivergent people as allies, all of those are very valid experiences. So we're just going to keep that open as we go. And I just want to give you a little bit of an overview about me and give you a heads up for these Masterminds Neurodivergent Professional events. The only way to find out about them is to sign up on my link tree. I do this for free just to connect with people. So I send out maybe an email once a month just saying, hey, there's a new event that's out. So feel free to sign up here. I'll shoot this out in an email afterwards with a lot of different resources. With that being said, I am so excited to introduce to you Dani. Dani, if you don't know her, you need to know her. She's multifaceted internet content creator, speaker, ADHD comic artist, and she has created something called the Anti-Planner. Now, I heard about this a couple of years ago. Yes, I have mine too. One of my closest friends who had ADHD knew I was like obsessed with productivity and obsessed with understanding more about the human brain. And she recommended this to me. Her name is Diana. She's an amazing graphic designer. And if she's on, I will shout her out because she's amazing. She introduced me to this, and this has changed a lot of the ways that I format how I do things every day. And Dani, if you want to say hi to the group and talk a little bit about what you want to get them to know and take away about the anti-planner right away.
I developed the anti-planner because I am also someone who has been, like, obsessed with productivity because it's so hard for me that I'm like, "Surely there's gotta be a way. There's gotta be a way to make this easier." I love making things easier, but it feels like everything was harder for me and everyone else made it look easy, and so it felt,
Mhm.
like, really
Mhm.
challenging to feel like, "Why am I struggling so much?" And for the anti-planner, I ended up developing, a toolbox with over 165 different ways to get stuff done, and that way and it's divided up by by how you're feeling because how you're feeling affects procrastination. So this whole thing, I call it a procrastination fire extinguisher. It's meant to be, like, used in the moment that you're trying to get stuff done, and then you could put it away and forget about it, and it because it doesn't go bad. That was the thing with me with a lot of tools was like, "Oh, it loses its novelty, now it's dead to
Mhm.
me," or it's a planner and it's December, now it's not good anymore.
Yeah, and one of my most favorite things about the anti-planner is that it is structured by emotion and that there's an intro to each of the sections that makes you just feel so seen. You just read it and you're like, "Oh my gosh, yes, this is exactly how I'm feeling right now. Let me go just and try out some of these different tools that are in here." To start with, I just want to go over what we're going to do today. So, we're going to have a quick little interview with Dani and talk through some of her experience, her background. Then you are more than welcome to share your own questions, your own experiences. You can come off mute at that point. I'll tell you all when to do that. Or if you're not feeling really chatty today, go feel free to drop it into the Q&A so that we can to answer your question. And then lastly, I want to know what's next for you. What are you taking away from this? Dani, I want to talk about your ADHD comics. So, your comics have helped millions of people like feel seen and understood. How did you get started translating your experience into visuals and what really surprised you about how people responded to those?
So I started, I would say, making comics, I would say, on accident. I had gone to art therapy like twice and I found it really helpful. I had somebody who, like, on my first time going, I kept apologizing for talking too much, and she was like, "Why do you keep apologizing?" And I'm like, "Oh, because it's annoying." And she goes, "Who said it's annoying?" I'm like, "Everyone!" And crying, and she was like, "Okay, all right. Can you draw what annoying feels like?" And so I drew this spiky ball, like, going up and making all this, like, splashy waves and, like, disturbing all these little, like, orange, like, circles that all look the same, and then there's this one that was, like, drawing a lot of attention to itself and, like, disturbing others, which is, like,
Mm,
pretty much my report or, like, childhood report card is Danny needs to learn to, like, independently work and stop distracting others. And but that was, how to say, how it felt, and it was really cathartic to get to express that visually because my little bit of my background, I'm a visual communication and design major, and I always was mad. I'm like, why don't they just call it graphic design? That's what it is, right? It's graphic design. Why do you have to have a big complicated name and confuse everybody I talk to? But it turns out that like visual communication is what they train me to do because it came as
mm.
second nature as how to translate ideas and concepts into metaphors or like visual stuff. And so my first comic, which was like ADHD storytelling and like how I tell stories or how other people tell stories, which is like start of story and end of story. And then ADHD storytelling, which is like pre-story prologue. And this whole like, what was I saying? Jumbled mess of a train of thought. And then after end of story, it says apologize. And I made this based off a conversation I had with a coworker when I worked at Gallup. And I sent it to her and she goes, "Oh my God, it's so you." And I was like, "I know, I made it." And she was like, "You have to put this online." And I had said, "I don't want to," because our boss followed me on Instagram and I hadn't talked
Mm,
about having ADHD. So she was like,
right.
"Put it on Twitter. You've only got like 600 followers. So no one's going to see it." And then somebody with a big ADHD following retweeted it and it just blew up from there. And I was like, I guess I can tell my boss. Anywho, so that's how I got started. And then after that first one blew up, I saw in the comments how many people felt seen, how many people were, like,
Mhm,
crying because they're like, they apologized, kicked us, like, in the gut, where, "Oh, I do apologize for
mhm.
taking up too much space," or too much space. I put that heavy air quotes, but anyways, so I felt this need because this is back in 2018, so there were not, like, a bunch of ADHD content creators yet,
Mhm.
and so, anyways, that sort of propelled me forward, and then I was making them for myself to understand myself, and then saw how much it was helping other people understand themselves, and it just went from there.
What do you think is like the biggest mistake other productivity systems like have when they're approaching getting organized or fixing like a neurodivergent brain?
This challenging because I have my instant answer just, like, loaded up and ready to go, but it's different when you're working on, like, a team,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
and so there's two things with this, which is that for people with especially with ADHD, but any kind of neurodivergence, we're getting things done, especially things you don't wanna do or things that you find challenging or intimidating, and we will keep procrastinating, keep putting it off, that there's this sort of concept of if you can find the right system, then just use that system and then you'll have it figured out, right? Like
Mhm,
we're all yearning for that one silver bullet that's going to help us get our shit together. And this will be it. And I just have to find it. And then every time we try something and it doesn't work or we stop using it, it's okay, great. Let me tack on another chapter to my internal storyline of me being a failure at everything I try.
mhm,
The bigger that pile of baggage gets surrounding productivity systems, I think the more likely we are to be hesitant to try new things because we don't want to fail. And
mhm,
history, we are pattern recognition machines. And I'm like, if my history tells me like I'm nervous to spend money on things or worse, like I'll spend money on things and then not start them because I'm
mhm,
already convinced I'm going to fail. And so developing the anti-planner really started actually as I was like, I'm going to make an ADHD friendly planner. And I was working on it. And as I was trying to work on it, I started using like weird ways to trick myself into getting stuff done, unhinged. Like some of them were like funny, some of them are like normal, and then some of them were just like, what is she doing? And I realized that as I was working on the planner, I'm like, I'm not using the planner to get things done. I'm using all these weird things I'm like drawing in my notebook. This is probably what I need. This is probably what people actually need is all and I flipped through it and I had 12 different strategies that I was cycling between. And so then deciding if I developed this out on top of what things I have already tried that I'm not even using right now, on top of coming up with new stuff, I could make a bunch of tools and or like a toolbox. And so then I ended up with a ton of tools, a ton of strategies, a ton of games and challenges and then I looked at it and went, "This is too much stuff to navigate." Now if somebody wants to get something done, it's now I've got decision paralysis. Now I have a new task,
mm,
which is flip through the book and try to figure
mhm,
out
mhm,
what do I even do first? And so then I brainstormed all of these different reasons why I don't do stuff. Why do I procrastinate? And I like wrote them all out on note cards and drew little doodles with them and then pushed them into piles of what mean similar things. And I ended up with what turned out to be 16 different emotions that were, like, all pretty substantially different from each other, and then I was like, "Cool, I can divide them into these sections," and I looked at it, I'm like, "16 sections is, like, still too many to navigate. Do these kind of clump together in any way?" And so then those 16 emotions, I was able to find little, like, umbrella emotions, so it essentially made, like, an executive dysfunction feelings wheel, where it's,
mhm,
it's like there are different kinds of sad, there's, like, grieving, and there's disappointed and stuff like that, like, those hit different in the same way with, like, being overwhelmed. Being burnt out is different than feeling intimidated, and
mhm,
so I
mhm.
think that when people are able to then figure out what is the resistance that I'm facing, being able to find like, whether or not you have an anti-planner, finding any kind of tool, any kind of system to get something done, it's a lot easier if you can identify what's making it challenging first.
One of the things I really loved about the book was understanding myself and my emotions as I went through because I didn't even know why I was doing some of the things I was doing. I feel like a lot of neurodivergent people can be a little bit removed from their emotional selves as well. So not only does the Planner bring you into action, it helps you to explore a little bit more about the emotions that you're having. And if a section wasn't hitting the way that I thought it was, I would move on to a different section. I'd be like, oh, actually, this kind of feels more accurate and moving into it. So if you're like kind of one of the things you were talking about was okay, methods don't always work. Something that works perfectly for you at one point won't work maybe at another point. If you What's a rule that someone can choose before they even choose a tool or a method? Like, what should they be looking at first before even jumping into that? Oh, I need to go set up a Pomodoro timer, or I need to figure out another way to do this. What should people do first?
So there's a this is something where I struggle to take my own advice. So I will always come out there and say, this stuff is not as easy as it sounds. It's so simple to come on this and somebody gives you the answer. You're like, cool, I tried that. Or
Yeah.
cool, that's great that you are able to do that consistently. And I just want to make sure that I validate that like, doing something consistently is challenging, even if that consistent thing is just figuring out how to be slightly less consistently inconsistent. And the identifying what is making it hard is a big thing, especially if it's something that you continue to not do, right? So that I know what I need to do, but I can't get myself to do it is like executive dysfunction in a nutshell, right? And so if something's easy to do, then it doesn't matter if you have a system to do it. You're going to do it. You don't really think about it. The things that we think about are often like, what is it that's challenging. And so figuring out like why is like I said, why isn't this getting done? And that takes some self-reflection. And that's like you talked about, not easy for everyone. I've got like a decade of
Mhm.
therapy. So
Yeah.
it's a practice and getting in touch with the sitting there because I think we rush into that solution first without
Mhm.
understanding the problem. And when we do that, I think that we're so much more likely to pick the wrong approach. I think we're so much likely to overcomplicate things. I am like notorious for procrastinating by planning. And so it's let me and I'm seeing so many people nodding. Let me find a new way to set this up and I'll spend time setting up the system. And I'm like, I ran out of energy now. I spent all my
Mhm.
energy on making the system that is like too complicated to maintain because I was like really ambitious because my brain gets all lit up with a new thing, a new project. And so I think that again, that like turning inward to understanding what is it? And literally have a post note on my computer that says, "Don't overcomplicate it, make it easy." And I think that's like my baseline level advice is like, what is the easiest version of this thing? And the activity I use the most in the anti planner from the perfectionism section is how to half ass it, which is so hard to do,
Oh,
especially when you've
yes.
got
Yes.
some quote unquote like gifted kid like chip on my shoulder about, "No, I have to make it perfect so that nobody is ever disappointed in me, including myself." And instead of making a to-do list, it's that list gets separated into must-haves and nice-to-haves. And so the must-haves is literally like, what's the MVP version of this? What are the things on the list that if I can't take this piece out or else this will not be completed? If anything is on this list and could be taken out, it comes off the list.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so then all of the things that are like technically unnecessary, designing like a pretty PowerPoint, even though my brain wants to like go down the rabbit hole of it, it gets stuck there. I do that last if I have time. And so what that allows me to do is if I finish the task, I finished all the must-haves first. And you get to decide if you want to spend time on the nice to haves. And sometimes if I care about it, like I will, or I'll just pick the little pieces of nice to haves that I want to
Mhm.
do. But a lot of times I'm just so relieved that it's done that I'm like, you know what? I thought I cared about this. And it turns out I don't. Being able to get over and it just eliminates so many steps that I'm convinced are like necessary, but they're really not.
Yeah, in the chat, we have, multiple people putting in their own mantras of "good enough, push on,
Yeah.
don't make perfect the enemy of the good." So this is really resonating with people.
Yeah.
And I
Good is
also
great, but
wanted to
done better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to echo something that you said, even though you and I are speaking about this topic right now, because we've gotten to a place where we feel comfortable with ourselves and acceptance, that doesn't mean we're 100% perfect, right? Like we are also figuring this out. And we're also learning every day about who we are and what we can build for better for the future. So, one of the other things in the chat that I thought was really funny was that Billy said, I really fall into this trap with rules and automation and setting up workflows in Asana. And that is one of the traps that you can fall into, which is Asana is really user friendly and easy to get into and get going and started. And then there's a lot of fun, interesting power user things that you can do. But you do need to pull yourself back sometimes and say, why am I building this? And is this going to be used more often, or is it only a special instance? So I
And am I
love
using
that.
this to procrastinate something else?
Am I using this because I just think it's a really cool thing to that I can do, or is it actually pushing my career forward or my my work forward? Okay, so let's pull this into, you talked about some of the tactics you're using from the anti-planner. I know you mentioned you do the dice roll, you gamify it a little bit, use Kanban occasionally. Talk to me a little bit about when you use different tools, and if another thing you mentioned was like if something doesn't work out once, how do you personally get the oomph to try it again? Because you mentioned
Mhm.
that you were pattern recognition machines. We failed at that once. Like, how do you push yourself to try the tactics over and over again?
I would say remix them.
Mm,
And so I love finding new in order to make something that used to work for me work again. It cannot be the same. Brain will not accept it. It's like, no, we failed at that. If I can put a hat on it, that it's, oh, this is new. A little mustache and suddenly this is a different strategy now. But so for example, like Kanban boards, I love using Kanban boards. I use that. I think Asana is one of the first places that I started using it like digitally. Uh, and I love I love the physical post-it notes. Anybody who was here at the beginning heard me talking about post-it notes, but I love the tactile being able to like move stuff around. And so I would have one. I've done them on posters. I've done them on doors. I've done them wherever. But the thing is, if it's anywhere out of my eye line, it's like fades into the
mm,
background, it is dead to me, and I don't look at it. And so it's okay, I would use them for like a project. I'd make one for a project, I'd do it, and then I'd try to keep using it after the project was over, and it
mm,
just didn't stick, right? And so Kanban boards are one of the things that's I come back to it over and over again because I know that it has worked for me in the past, but I stop doing it once it has stopped working. But the way that I come back to it now, the thing I found that works really well and getting rid of that, like, I don't s- out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, is I use my computer monitor. So I will stick along the bottom are like my to dos, which I love because I also can only stick so many post-it notes down there. So it's these are the most important things. Like I've got more than seven like things I need to do, but the ones that are on here are like the top, and then when it's in progress, I move it to the right side. If it's on hold or waiting, I put it on the left side. And then when they're done, I put it along the top side. And so I really love doing that because I am sitting at my computer. I cannot miss them. I cannot not
mhm,
remember they exist. And I think even with digital tools, if I close out of the tab or it goes behind something else, like it's so easy for me to sometimes forget that I've got that stuff there. Putting it where you are likely to use it and again like remixing it into a what is the problem with the Kanban board? Why did it stop working? It stopped working because I'm not looking at it. What can I do to make sure I look at it? And so I think that assessing rather than looking at things as like a failure, going, what is it that made this challenging? Or what was that sort of quote unquote like failure point? And then
mhm.
can I problem solve that? Because I think so many neurodivergent people are just excellent problem solvers because we think differently. So it becomes like a game. I was like a game of how do I solve my own problems? It's like my which I only
Oh,
wanna do when I
yeah.
feel empowered, and I think that's the thing that, like, comes with it is,
Mm,
like, that resiliency because so many of us have been, like, knocked down, and we keep getting up again, and I think that many people maybe don't give themselves credit for how many things we've tried, and there are some
mhm,
things in the book where people are like, "I didn't realize that I was doing a lot of this stuff already, and I didn't know it had a name,"
mhm.
or I didn't remember it existed. We are also notorious for knowing things work and then forgetting about them. So I think that that can really help with that.
Yeah, and one of the things that you were saying is, like, externalizing our thinking, like, digitally creating a
Yes.
repository. Oh, I couldn't say And then moving that, like sometimes a digital repository can be overwhelming, can be too much. When do we need to prioritize and make it smaller, make it more physical? That's where you have a limited space of using your monitor for those post-it notes, right?
Mhm.
There's different times when you can go to different things and be able to use it. It's seasonal. And one of the things that I try to remember is that I don't remember exactly the stat, but essentially neurodivergent children get X amount more criticisms as they're growing up.
It's like
And so
25
that's,
times.
yeah, 25 times more criticism as they're growing up. And if you are constantly met with that criticism and then you feed that into your own self, you tell yourself, I am a failure, I'm doing these things, like I just can't get things together. And I try to remind people that you're learning something every time you fail. Like you're bringing out something new that you're learning about yourself. And it doesn't always mean that it means that this time in this moment that didn't work out, but try it again at some other point. And it can feel overwhelming to have so many things to be able to try. So try the things that you've kept a list on and what you've tried before and what felt pretty good.
One of the ways that remixing and so in the book, I've got a lot of things at the bottom where there's a footnote that says pairs well with, because,
Yes.
using strategies together or finding if there is a strategy that was working and you need to make it, like, re-sparkleize it and make it, like, shiny and new again,
Mhm.
how can I match this with this speed run and set timers? Or how can I mix this and that and find ways to, like you said, experiment? Because the way I also look at it is like with like hangman or wordle or something like that, if you guess a letter and you guess a T and there's no T, it's I'm not, oh no, I'm a horrible person. No, that's just not part of the answer this time. And you're that much closer to finding something that will work and that will work for this specific problem, because there might come another time where you do need a T.
Yes. Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah. And okay, so let's move into some questions from the audience. I think what we've figured out right now and learned about is a little bit about your background, understanding like art therapy pushed you into this world of creating visuals for your content. Like I also am a huge proponent of therapy. I had like several therapists be like, maybe you should look for ADHD diagnosis. And I said, no, I'm too organized. I'm too organized. And then all my systems failed after a while. And then
Well,
I was
also
like,
it's, "Oh, what is this? Coping skills that I had to develop to survive?"
exactly, exactly. And I hit a point where I was like, oh, like I do need additional help. And I currently am medicated and people can medicate or not medicate. It's really up to you and what works for you. But for bulk of my life, I just used all of the coping skills that I had mysteriously developed somehow. So with all of that, therapy is great. Please get into therapy. Everyone should. And we were talking about the different tools that are in the anti-planner. It really was a book that stuck with me throughout the years. And it really definitely changed a lot of the ways that I approach projects. And we talked a little bit about some things you just got to move into and try again and again, and maybe it's different. But with that, we're going to move into audience questions. If you have a question, drop it either into the chat or the Q&A. I'm looking at both of those, but the Q&A would be more helpful for me. I'm going to pull open one thing. Oh, one question we got earlier on was, do you share any tips on talking to your boss or work about ADHD and communication? Danny, do you want to talk about that conversation you had with your boss, how you approach that?
Like I said, mine was such a weird,
Yeah.
simply make a viral comic about ADHD and then be forced to tell them.
Before you were
Uh,
forced out of the closet,
yeah,
essentially.
that's which was but the thing was, like, I had disclosed at other jobs after I got in trouble. I never told
Mm,
anyone until I got in trouble about something, because then it was just like, "Okay, there is a reason." I was so afraid of being discriminated against. I was so
yes.
afraid that
Yep.
people wouldn't, like, trust me with responsibility on some projects. I was afraid that I wouldn't get promoted. I was like, there were so many
Mhm.
things I was like
Yeah.
afraid of, even though I had really cool, chill bosses.
Yeah.
It was still right. Like I still had that like fear of stigma built
Mhm.
up. And but having that conversation and knowing what it is that again, with the self-identifying what your struggles are, especially if there's anything that's coming up in performance reviews or if there are things that you just feel like you're working really hard to try to like stay on top of. But one of the top things I know for people is like difficulty focusing. If you're especially if you're in like an open office environment. I know so many of us work from home now, so this isn't necessarily relevant, but like for things like auditory overstimulation, um, asking for accommodations, seeing about getting like noise canceling headphones. And so there's I think it's still there, a part on my website on ADHDdd.com. Like my comics are there, but there's a FAQ section that's got like a workplace thing, I think, and it's got a lot of resources about based on your symptoms, here are accommodations that you can talk to your boss about, as well as like I think scripts for how to do that. But I will say like within teams, not just bosses, I think that being the people that you work with on the regular who also are doing a lot of especially if people are waiting on you, other people waiting on me. It's if I don't do my job and I'm in a silo, I'm the one who has to stress out. But if I'm not doing my job and someone else is stressed because I'm not doing my job, that's a rough place to be. And even coming up with like your own, so say, creative ways for communication. I developed an emoji code with people. I do this with like my family and friends via text, but also with my team where we'll have an urgency codes, right? So
Mm, mhm.
three fire emojis is like drop everything you are doing. I don't care if you're in the movies, like something's on fire, the company's gonna break down, whatever it is. Or this is due, your taxes are due tomorrow. You have to sign this kind of thing. And the which happened today. And so the anyways, the and then 2 is, like, still pretty high. 1 is like, "Hey, this is urgent, you need to get to this, like, today or tomorrow." A candle is like, "You can't ignore this needs to be done, this is not, like, optional, but it doesn't have to be done now," and then the other kind of requests are there, so and it's at the beginning of the message. So if I look down and you see the little notification or I see one come in and I see a fire emoji, my brain immediately is I can't go, I'm in the middle of a workflow, so I don't really wanna go look at it, especially if their ask is buried underneath the
Mm.
first sentence. Again, something like that where if like checking messages and identifying what was needed was a bit of a challenge, but like finding a code like that was really helpful.
Yeah. So basically creating like the visual way of being like, how do I prioritize this right away and having that kind of be a discussion with people that you're working with. This kind of reminds me of something that
It's
I did with my
hieroglyphics.
team. Yeah, hieroglyphics. Yes, shortcuts, right?
Yeah.
Like
I'm
being
the
able to
big
have
emoji
a
person.
visual that kind of explains things to you.
Well, and a
The
tag at the beginning too for
Yeah,
the like instant identification of the core idea, which is this is important. You need to read this.
yeah. This also reminds me a lot of something else I recommend with people, and I wanted to come back to this idea of do I disclose, do I not disclose? And it really depends on the culture of the company. Someone said that in the chat as well, and your comfort level, right? I was going through the interview process a couple year and a half ago or so, and I was like, I really would like my interview questions beforehand because I'm able to prep much better if I know what's happening. And I was talking to a career coach of mine at that time. Her name's Sherry. She's amazing, and I'll recommend her to you if you need her. She was like, "Do you have to disclose? Like, you can just ask for the interview questions. You don't necessarily have to disclose right
Mhm.
away that you have ADHD. Like, that can be seen as a liability occasionally." And so in that process, I was overthinking and being like I want to disclose right away. And it's really just up to you to understand your comfort level. For myself, I am very open about my neurodivergent status and I put it on my LinkedIn and everything like that. So when I was hired at this company, they had already looked at my LinkedIn. They had already seen all of the things that I posted about it. So it really just is up to you and how discerning you want to be in that case. And another thing you can do if you're already in the job and not necessarily wanting to request like a formal accommodation, you can do something that's a like how to work with me guide. Diana, I think created or introduced this to me before. And it's okay, create a little guide about how you like to work and start that conversation with someone like, oh,
Mhm.
do you prefer to have written feedback? Do you prefer to have phone calls constantly? Like it's just opening up the conversation about how you like to work. And that's not necessarily being like, I'm neurodivergent, so you have to accommodate me. It's more like, I want to talk to you about the best way for our relationship at work to work together. And you can do that with managers, with the people you work with. Anyway,
Mhm.
I can talk about this
I will
forever.
say that I one of the things I have started doing, which has helped a lot, is me letting people know, "If you have not heard from me on this, please do not hesitate to bug the shit out of me. Poke
Yes.
poke me and poke like, you could poke me and no, say, poke me until I do it because I don't mean to that's it's not okay to, like, always put that responsibility on other people, right? But there are people where I just especially if things aren't pressing, but I will tell people, "If you haven't heard back from me about this by Wednesday, can you poke me again?" And I will ask pretty much for if you have not asking for a follow-up in advance, I have found is helpful.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. And some people would think that's, oh, am I annoying her? But you said no, this is helpful for me and I need you to do that. So, yeah, there's so many great ways to like work around things,
And I'm more
or
likely
you
to
can
get
be
you what you
straightforward.
need.
Yes. Yeah, position it in there in that way as well. Okay, let's go back into the Q&A. We got a bunch of questions in here dropping in here. The any Kanban training resources you recommend? I would actually say Asana has a lot of good resources, and I'll pull some of that up into our email that follows up with it. Danny, is there any that comes to your mind right away? I think
Like
for
a di
me, when I learned about Kanban was just natural. Yeah.
Yeah, I it's the to do in pro my biggest thing was just learning about what, like, on hold and waiting means, like, that sort of confused me at first, but and I think for some people, it's like, "Oh, these are projects that are, like, currently paused, and I'm not working on them." But I find that, like, waiting is helpful where it's, I have done everything I can do up to this point, but this is not completed, but I'm waiting on someone else before I
Mm,
can before I can move on because I need to hear back from them. That way, if I haven't heard from them in a long time and I look up at my waiting thing, it's, "Oh, I should follow up on them because this definitely needs to get done, and I'm still waiting on this." Because otherwise, I will often think to myself, "Oh, I have completed that thing, my part. I've done my part,
it's
and I
done.
don't
I've got
remember
completely, yeah.
that they have not done their thing because I was just so excited I got my thing accomplished. That following up is such a challenge for me. But yeah, I would
Yeah,
say
because we already got the dopamine from it. We checked the box. We're done. But
yes.
the project still needs to move forward. And so what Danny was talking about there is for anyone not familiar with Kanban is that Kanban is a column-based format where you move forward tasks based on the status of where they're at. And Danny is recommending, which I have also done in my projects, make sure that you have a waiting on or a column where you can make sure that people are responding back to you after you've delivered something to them. Okay, sorry, I got a little excited. Danny, did you have anything else with that?
But yeah, I was gonna just one more thing mention that
Yeah.
I talked about like pairing things. One of the things that I
Mm,
love pairing with Kanban boards are two things. So I do labeling, which is where I might put like what type of task something is. So if I have a bunch of tasks and it's okay, this involves like purchasing. So you can do this digitally or you can do this with Kanban board. You don't have to be doing Kanban boards to do this. I will label it. So on Post-it notes, I'll draw like a little dollar sign in the right bottom right corner. If it's this is something I need to purchase, like I need to book flights to something, right? Or I need to buy my conference tickets. I need to do all this stuff, like all these things that involve my card. All have this little kind of thing on it. And then these things might be like and so I'll put a little pencil, or again, if I use,
Yeah.
like Todoist or Asana, you can tag stuff, and then doing batching where you can grab, here are all of the things that require purchasing stuff. I'm going to sit down and do all my purchasing stuff in one go, or I'm going to sit down and do all my emails. It's like I need to get back to this person, grabbing all of the ones that are like related,
Mhm.
um, in the same type of activity, and just blasting through all of those in one go, I found is also really helpful.
Yes. And this is another of that shortcut for visuals, right? Being able to create shortcuts in your brain for the visual so that you can say, okay, I'm going to batch these together because these are the same type of task. And I know that they're important to do at the same time. Christian in the chat actually mentioned that he does something similar with colored circle emoji for support needs, which I thought was really interesting. So he used different colors based on what is needed at certain times. I do something similar with color as well for my calendar, but I base it off of energy suck. Like, so if
Love
it's,
this.
yeah, if it's like a high energy, something that takes me a lot of effort, it would be a red on my calendar physically, like in my, not my physical calendar, but my digital calendar. But event like this is a green because it gives me energy back.
Yeah.
So then I can actually plan my day so that I'm not red all day. I'm actually like basing it through energy.
I
Okay.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say I really love that concept of, I would say, of color coding. I'm really big on color coding things.
Mhm.
But when I was working on the anti-planner, because so, for those who don't know, I wrote, designed, illustrated, self-published. I now run the company that like is in charge of doing the whole production and fulfillment line. Like it's a lot of work. But I wanted to make it the way I wanted to make it. But in doing so, I would send it out, get a proof, and have the proof come back. And then I would have edits because I wasn't finished with it. And so I'd go through the book and I would have orange post-it notes are for illustration, blue post-it notes are for writing, green post-it notes are for like layout design, like where I'd use Procreate, like different programs for each of these. And then I'd have it to where the first, like anything, any post-its I put on the top were like high priority, any post-its I put on the right side were all medium, and then ones on the bottom were all low. So then what I'd end up doing is batching the, let me do all of the high priority writing tasks, or let me do all of the, and I'd knock through all of the kind of like batching. And I didn't, there's stuff like that I think a lot of us do that we don't think about, the fact that that's a brilliant way to like blast through stuff like this. And I think that there are a lot of people who maybe do things like this unconsciously without realizing how like beautiful and excellent it is that they're coming up with their own systems.
Yeah. Yeah. And that took you experimentation to get there too, right?
Yeah.
Like you had already gone through some additional systems before that, I'm sure, and you landed on this that worked for this project, right? So
Yep.
you might have to change your projects, like your systems for your projects based on that.
Yep.
And it's all about communicating out too. Like you did this individually for the most part
Yeah.
with support from different people. When you are working in like more of a group environment, that's where you keep updating your how to work with me guide, or keep having conversations. Hey, for this project, actually, this is uh one example I can share is, for me, I'm in marketing, so I have continual task-based projects that are like easy to do. Kanban is great for, but for events, there's so many little details that can be missed. I definitely use a list-based form because there's so many different things I need to look at. So if you have different project types, you might want to change whatever system you're using. So I wanted to get to this question here because I think this is an important one. And I know you already said I should be good, but I think in general, this question here is, when an environment isn't particularly set up the best for a neurodivergent person, and you aren't necessarily able to affect organizational change
Mhm.
because you have limitation from your, reaching out to your C suite, or reaching out to, you don't potentially have an executive sponsor or something, how would you move forward after encountering maybe a PIP or maybe a a performance goal that you're expected to land when you might not be able to meet it and you're not able to affect change in the org. Long way of saying, if a company isn't helping you, that might be when I would be looking at moving. If you can't speak up for yourself or feel like you have truth, be able to speak your truth and get the support you need, whatever that support is, neurodivergent accommodations or not, I think that's like when I personally say it's time to update my resume and get out the door for that. And at that same time, if you love this company, you love this team, the only problem is not being understood by potentially like a manager or a C-suite or things like that. What are the things that you can control that you can affect change in? But if you're continually hitting, if your energy is continually drained by not being understood and not being able to truly get the things you need, I think that's when I personally start to look for an additional place. Sorry, that was very long-winded. Danny, do you have anything else to say on that?
You said exactly what I was gonna say, so I was like, "Wow," it's literally like you pulled it out of my brain. I think that with certain, and again, it depends because like I'm very lucky. I have had very, very cool bosses.
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
not the case everywhere. And I feel like
Mhm.
I'll always, I like do not take for granted that not having a shitty boss has been incredibly
Mhm.
helpful for me. Um, but I think that's one of the things is if there is something, if you love the company and you want to stick with the company or you really love your position, you love everything except you're struggling to get to work on time and you've talked to people and they will not let you change your hours. Let's say that like flexible hours would be something that would be incredibly helpful if I was able to shift like at Gallup, I was able to move it to where I didn't have to start work till 9:30, but I stayed and I worked till 6:30. Um,
Mhm.
and so I like so long as I was getting my work done, they were really flexible about it. They didn't care. Other companies are not all like that, or because of the job responsibilities, it might not be possible. And so if it's I want this job, I need this job, I don't want to move, but I can't get
Mhm.
down. It's deciding, yeah, is it what is it gonna not just like deciding what would it take, but seeing if you can find someone, even if it's not like hopefully there's someone at the company that you can confide in or talk to, even if it's just like a friend who's a coworker on if you're having a hard time troubleshooting it yourself, see if you can get some feedback on, dude, I'm struggling with this. I've tried this and it's not working. Trying to see if other people might be able to assist in coming up with solutions if you're struggling on your own.
Love all of that. And yes, we're on the same wavelength. Okay, there's last question, and then I think we're gonna move into share in the chat what you're taking away and what you're gonna put into practice. Because I think that's one of the things, like, we can be very excited as neurodivergent people about the things that we're hearing, but pick one that you're gonna try out in the next day and put it in the chat for me. Last question we're gonna go into, and we'll have about 2 minutes to answer it. I'm going to summarize this a little bit. People are not listening when I do communicate with them on how to properly give me information or push tasks to me. And essentially, you have to continually ask them, and this person is finding out that people are going to revert back to communicating in the way that's easiest for them. And another problem of this is that their manager is one of their worst offenders.
Mm,
What's the suggestions on how to get your new needs communicated and to actually be honored slash respected? And I'm going to have a very unpopular opinion on this, and I want to see what Danny says too.
okay.
My very unpopular opinion on this is that a boundary is something that you communicate not only what you want to happen, but what you will do if that does not happen.
Mhm,
So if you literally tell people, if you DM me, like a DM is the worst place to message me, you need to let that drop. You need to let that task not be answered because they messed up. So,
That was literally
so
gonna be my thing too, was just like,
yes,
this is like questionable advice, and if
yes,
anybody gets fired, I don't want it on me. No,
yeah,
but
yes. You
it
have
is one that like
to,
you teach people how to, I would say, how to treat you, and it's so easy. It's like, yeah, but if I don't do this thing, I'm gonna lose my job.
and then you
And
have to figure out where you are in your career and what is good for you. And I know that fear of letting things drop. I constantly have that, like you were saying, Danny, the perfectionist, the child that got good grades. I want to continue getting good grades at work, but the problem is your work life balance will never be what you want it to be if you don't let things drop, if people are not following the things that you want it to do. Um, but yeah, anything else to say on that, Danny?
I was gonna say, from how you said summarize, I'm assuming that meant that there was probably a lot of information that did include details, because it was like, I don't know the details of this particular thing and if
Mhm.
this is relevant or not, but there were certain things that's, if they're not helping and dropping it is like not an option, if there's some way to automate it, so it's like, okay, they are messaging
Yeah,
me in DMs and they're not doing what they wanna do because I want this to end up in Asana, and I'm not able to get that to happen. It's like looking for integrations for, is there a way that I could click something and push a button and it goes to where what? Is
yeah,
there something in the middle? Or if it's like, I need a task list of stuff to be doing, and it's like they're sending me this big long paragraphs. It's like, can you throw that in ChatGPT? Yeah, that's nah, that's questionable because that's gonna miss stuff. But are there things that could be potentially helped with automations and stuff like that? Again, I don't know the details of
yes.
the
No,
specifics.
that's totally true. There is a Slack to Asana integration. There's also an email to an Asana project. I don't know if everyone knows about this, but you can literally forward email into Asana and it will go to a specific project. So that's also really helpful. There's a lot of ways around it. And of course, I lead with burn everything down. But you can also identify what's in your control and where your boundary of is, okay, if this thing happens, then I won't X, or figure out what's most important to you. But I think my own thing that I'm trying more of is to let things fall so that people will understand where to interact with me at.
Oh my god, the
Uh,
anxiety just, like, coursing through my body, especially if you're not used to setting boundaries is so scary. There's a whole section in the book on overcommitted, and there's
mm,
a lot of stuff about how to set realistic expectations at work, and there's a whole spread on how to get out of doing shit you don't wanna do, that's got, like, scripts of things you are used to say and things that are, like, better, more like boundary setting or more assertive without being mean. If someone keeps adding stuff to your plate and you don't have space for it, here's 4 different
mhm.
ways to say, okay, in order to prioritize this, I'm going to need to pause.
Yes, yeah, like scripts as well and practicing. I find what I have the most issue with is just blanking if I'm encountered with something and agreeing instead of being like, okay, wait, actually, this isn't my boundary section. Lastly, I want to say thank you to everyone for coming. It was great conversation, awesome conversation in the chat and everything. I love that everyone's engaging with everyone. If you want to get your own anti planner, which I highly recommend, it's changed
That's
everything.
chunky boy.
Um, yeah, it's chunky, but it is also such a luxe book, like really nice. It's not just a book that you're just gonna have for a season and throw away. Go to ADHDD.com. I put it into the chat as well. That's where you can find anything about Dani as well. Thank you so much, Dani, for joining and for doing this out of the kindness of your own heart to speak to our group here.